You know, it is so much darker in here, and yet it looks exactly the same as it did earlier. So anyway, well, I don't know how to do this out of a hotel room and with no microphone and no lighting and actually no makeup. But I don't care. You guys wouldn't care. So anyway, here's the dangerous thing is leave me alone with my thoughts. And I have way too much that and that I'd like to say, but I'm not a teacher. I'm not one of those people who want to teach other people things. But what I do is I love discussion. I love the interaction with people to get their opinions because listen, I think that one of the greatest things you can do is listen to other people's opinions. It's a way of showing them that you love them. It's a way of showing them that they're valued and what they think is of value. And I wish I could just tell that to all parents. Parents get this idea that well, and it depends because they, they there's all these types of parenting right now. There's the gentle parenting. There are people that are very strict. They want to go. They want to go back to what they thought was really good parenting, where the parents were very authoritarian, and neither one of them is going to work unless you really love your child. And let me tell you, one of the things that I've questioned a million times is what makes kids not want to rebel against their parents. And one of the most important things, and there's lots of things, there's playing with them. You got to go out and have fun, praying with them, going to church with them, all those kind of things. But another thing is from the time they're little, let them know that you're going to listen to what they say, that you're not going to dismiss it, that you're not going to um, correct their opinions of everything they say. You need to listen. And if your children do need to be corrected, if they are very wrong, listen and make a note, make a red flag, tag what they said, and then try to work it into a story or a life lesson that sometimes you don't have to correct it immediately. You don't want to just squish children. What you want to do is they're beautiful plants that God has given you, and you just want to bend them a little bit this way, or put them in the light more, or water them. Or in other words, you're not. They're God's children, and you have the great privilege of raising one of God's children. And so don't don't get overly anxious to make them perfect right away. It's gonna take some time. That's why God gives you 18 years. It's because it's just going to take some time. And if you make some mistakes along the way, it's okay. You have 18 years to correct it. And that's really wonderful because children are um, they're very forgiving. And so what I was thinking about, I made some notes in the last couple of days of like, okay, if I get a chance to say something at Christmas, here is what I'm going to say. So I made some notes, but earlier I was on. So if you want to go back and look at what on my Christmas alone part one earlier today. So anyway, okay, every child is different, but I do think more kids are like me than people realize. I wanted to be good. Now, I think that's a natural instinct in a lot of children and a lot of people. Do you want to be good? Now, see, Protestants, some Protestants, Protestantism, and I think it's more Calvinism, tells you it's not about being good. It's about Christ being good. And of course that's true. That's of course that's true. But there's they don't quite know how to deal with the theological statement of a child that who says, I want to be good. I've heard, you know, Calvinists especially say, well, children are people of wrath until their God comes and takes them and sanctifies them. Well, Catholics aren't exactly like we believe that this desire to be good is part of the natural law. That it's good to want to be good, and we should encourage children and tell them they were made in God's image, and they are. I can see where they would want to be good. And God wants them to say they want to be good. And God wants them to be good. As a parent, you need to encourage a child who wants to be good. Breathe into them the hope that they are meant to be good. And very often that's not what Protestantism tells them. They'll say, well, you can't be good. Only God can be good. And that can actually destroy the natural inclination of children who are desiring to be good. And if I could give you a little bit of advice as parents, assume that your child wants to be good. Input that in them whenever you see it. If you see them being good, tell them, that was so good. That's lovely. I'm so glad you want to be good. Children, they'll love you doing that. They'll love that you noticed that they were trying to be good. And very often, parents can see bad where there's not. There are a lot of things that children do that they do naturally and out of curiosity, and it's not necessarily bad. It is just children being children. And they're not being bad. They're not even aware that they're being bad. And children can actually do things bad not knowing they're bad. A lot of children, and they're done because they need something. They need to be fed. They need to be they need some love from their parents. They need attention. There's lots and lots of things that children are going to need, and it's going to come across selfish, but they don't know how to get what they need unless sometimes they scream or they cry or whatever. When I was probably 14 years old, and a lot of the kids in my school were being rebellious. They were listening to rock music, and they were, they might have gone out and gotten a little tattoo, or they were drinking, or they were smoking marijuana. And I remember the teachers and parents saying something to, well, they're just trying to get attention. You just leave them alone. They're acting up to get attention. And I remember thinking, well, why don't you give them attention, and then maybe they won't be doing self-destructive and self-harm in order to get your attention. Go give them attention. Go listen to them. Go listen to those kids. So anyway, nurture the good in your children. And I believe that even the worst children have some good in them. Find it and nurture it. Don't assume your kids are being bad. Now, once they get 8, 9, 10, I would just ask them. I would say, now, you knew that was wrong, right? Did you know that was wrong? Why would you do that if you thought it was wrong? Talk about it then and say, well, and you do realize, that's against the family rules, and you may have to be punished So, okay, let's talk about this because, I don't want to punish you, but if you deliberately broke the rules, we're going to have a punishment. And you'd be surprised when children are used to you listening to them. They will probably make an excuse, and you may be able to listen to them and go, they're just making an excuse because they don't want a punishment. But there are times that is there is a good reason they are doing it. There are reasons, and you've got to listen to them and do your best to let them know you trust them and that you believe them. It is one of the most destructive things that you can do to your own child is for them to tell you out of their absolute bottom of their heart, well, that wasn't meant. I didn't mean to do that, and then you don't believe them. That can devastate a child. Okay, so find the good in your children. There's good in there with even I've never met a child that didn't have any good in them. Some children are more difficult, but sometimes you just misunderstand your children. They may think differently than you. Okay, so the second topic that I made a little note about, and I really should take clips from America Fest and the Turning Point, this America Fest that just happened. A lot of people are talking about Zionism and Candace and all that, but I have something else I want to talk about. I want to talk about how everyone is deifying Charlie Kirk. It is nothing but I'm going to be like Charlie Kirk fest. What would Charlie do? It absolute profound and profuse glorification of Charlie Kirk. And I'm not saying that's wrong at all. Quite the opposite. But what I do find interesting is that these Protestants that have gone on and on about how wonderful Charlie Kirk is, they may say he's even a saint. He's a Protestant saint. That they don't realize they're doing exactly what almost literally the honor they're giving Charlie Kirk is the exact type of honor that Catholics give Mary. We praise her. We call her a saint. We honor her like they're honoring Charlie Kirk. And that's very normal. Do you know of the early church when a lot of these young martyrs were women? There were a couple of them that were very famous that had just had a baby. And they were following Christ to the grave, handing their children over to those who were not willing to go to the grave. Other Christians would take their babies, not willing to go to the grave. And now you've got to trust God that those people you've left your child with will raise them in the Lord and to be strong and brave like their parent was. And so the early church very much took the bones and they honored them, and they created special grave sites for them and would honor them on the day they were martyred. And they were lifted up very high, like Charlie Kirk. And when we all of a sudden meet a modern day, a martyr, we change our views about what is of God and what isn't. Because here, if you were to have people say to those at the AmFest, listen, you are deifying Charlie Kirk. You are worshiping him. They would say, no, 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 no. by glorifying Charlie Kirk, he was one of those people that said, look to God. He was the one that was trying to get people to come to Christ. Well, that's what Mary was doing. And they might say, well, you're not bowing down to Charlie Kirk. Okay. Well, throughout history, people have taken the knee for kings and queens, and it wasn't worship. They did it out of honor. Men will take the knee when they are proposing to their wives or to their fiancés, or to get them to be their fiance. So bending the knee to someone isn't necessarily worship. It so I mean, even let's put it this way: the Romans at one point required Jews to bend the knee when their centurions and their leaders would pass by. They had to show honor and homage and respect. And what they began to do is say, our true king is Christ. So therefore, whenever the name of Christ is mentioned, or whenever a bishop comes in, we're going to show the Romans that we are giving them identical or even better, because it's voluntary. We're going to voluntarily kneel and kiss the rings of the bishops, because we want the world to know that Christ is king. So that is why they did that. So even though they may not be bending the knee at Charlie, they are certainly putting on quite the show, quite this pageantry for Charlie Kirk. So, have we done something wrong? I'm not saying stop doing it. On the contrary, I'm saying we cannot, there's nothing about what we're doing with Charlie Kirk that is taking away from God's glory. By honoring Charlie Kirk, he's one of the members of the body of Christ. It's actually, we can't, there's no, however much we honor Charlie, if we honor him higher and higher and higher and higher, there's always a gulf. It's going to always remain the same. God is so far above the type of honor we're giving Charlie Kirk that instead of robbing great people of their glory, why don't we just glorify God more? Why don't we just put the way, and that's the thing, is we don't want to glorify God as much as we need to. So therefore, we judge this honor we're giving Charlie Kirk and saying, well, I'm just not going to, that's the top. There you go. That's the limit of what I can do. And then you're giving it only to a human. So my suggestion is, let's think about this differently. Let's think about honoring God far, far above the way we honor people, but just honor them too, because we're supposed to be honoring them. And if you honor Charlie Kirk, you could honor Mary too. Okay. Number 3. This is okay, this is a little bit, we're taking another turn. At the time of Solomon's death, he had a son who was a very weak leader, Rehoboam. And then there was Jeroboam. Jeroboam was a rapscallion. He ran around with some guys that were kind of mischief makers and the rogues. And I would say that they might be like the Robin Hoods, but they really weren't that good. But Jeroboam was very masculine. Rehoboam was weak. And even though Rehoboam had the authority of God's leadership, He was in the direct line of the kingdom and the kingship of David. Jeroboam wasn't. And so we need to understand with what is going on right now. We've got all these men who are new Christians, such as Russell Brand. We've got, what's his name? Sobek. What is, I don't know. He's the guy. I don't know. I can't remember his name, but there's a whole bunch of them right now online that are young guys that are on fire for the Lord. Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles would be also among this, but they're not really in the succession of priests and bishops. They're just lay guys. They're just men out there that read their Bible and study, and they don't have God's uh, administrative authority given to them. They're just men with a microphone. And just like Russell Brand, I want to keep bringing him up because he's the one that inspired my thoughts about this. And so they may be, even Trump may be a little bit like this. I haven't thought about that very well, but I'm just going to throw out that idea. Maybe Trump is among these. But when the priest, the Bible says, when holiness is cast aside, when no one is becoming sanctified, God gives us women and babies, it says in the Bible, as our leaders. And that's because our priests, the ones ordained by God, have either become super corrupted or they've become cowards. And so when we see the Rehoboams, which are the priests, and let's just say those that have God's authority to hold down the fort while he's gone, when they become corrupt, because let's face it, when the people have become corrupt, you're going to be raising young men that are corrupt. And so those young men will enter the priesthood and as corrupt. So God will bring up some Jeroboams out of the midst of the people because they're masculine, because they will say what is right with courage, even when their lives may be a little bit on the messy side. God seems to choose the alpha males. And when your bishops and priests become beta males, you got a problem. So I'm going to try really hard never to judge or condemn the one gods have chosen to lead us, because that's on us. We need to be holy and sanctified so that we can start raising young men who will go into the priesthood that are holy and sanctified. But we need some alpha males on the inside, and God has chosen some alpha males in Russell Brand, Michael Knowles, Matt Walsh, Jack. Isn't that his name? Jack Posobiec. And I'm sure there are lots more out there who are unafraid to get out and say the truth. And they may be messes inside. They may be like Jeroboams. They may be total messes. But God has chosen them because he sees something he can work with in them, just like Jeroboam. And I believe every male is destined by God to be an alpha male. That's his calling and his responsibility. God doesn't want there to be beta males. My husband said this, so this isn't even my opinion. this part right here about the beta and the alpha. He said, there really is no such thing as a beta male. That's a pathology, not a natural type. So he says that we need to all men need to be alpha men. And what I mean by that is not harsh and brutal and bullies. That's not an alpha male. That comes from men who do not have confidence. That comes from men who are scared of women. So, kindness, strength, these are alpha male. Leadership always knows that you don't want to be the leader that has to beat the people underneath you. It comes by example, by their own inner strength and discipline. Okay. Let's see. These are other little things I was just jotting down. La, 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 la. I'm not going to get into that one. Let's see. Well, I'm going to throw out a statement, and I would love you to tell me if you think it's true. And I would love to hear from millennials, and I would love to hear from, uh-oh, I would love to hear from millennials and as well as boomers and Generation X and every other generation. I would just love to hear your opinion about this statement. It seems to me as if millennials are terrified of being wrong. That's my statement. Is that true? That they're terrified of being wrong? All right. So, anyone else out there that just wants to have a conversation on Christmas with somebody? I noticed that Jimmy Aiken, was a few minutes ago. He was on live too. He was having conversations with people, um, enjoying Christmas alone. And he was saying, "Here, come gab with me." So I would like to do that too, but I've been on here for 28 minutes, and I've had people come on and off and on and off, and so I don't know who, if we're talking about anything that you'd like to talk about. Why don't you guys pick a topic? If you're watching, why don't you pick a topic and say, hey, let's talk about this. Do you want to talk about Seventh-day Adventists? Do you, because that's how I grew up. Do you want to talk about music? Because I have my degree in a vocal performance, so I know a little bit about music, but it was mainly focused on voice. Although I had my minor in conducting, which I've only conducted a few times. So, but I love to talk about music. But the type of music I loved is not the popular kind. And I'm not against popular music. I'm just, well, I mean, it depends on the type of popular music. But I love, my newfound love is Catholic chants and Gregorian chants, which I think are absolutely beautiful. But I don't know that much about them. I would love to learn the old Latin system of how to read music. But I bet that's also a very esoteric, an esoteric topic most people don't know about. So let's see. I already did an hour on how wonderful Christmas is. So anyway, we're coming up to 30 minutes. So I probably will stop now. and I might get on later. I've got some things I've got to get to right now, and I'll either get back on today or tomorrow, depending on this phone call I just got. So, God bless you. I hope you have the rest of your Christmas is wonderful. And anyway, pray for me because we are praying for you. God bless.